So I want you to picture the scene for a second. It is late February 1945.
Right.
It's a leap year, actually, so it's either the 28th or the 29th, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, the dates get a little fuzzy there.
Exactly. And the Egyptian sun is just, relentlessly beating down on this cracked, dry earth near a town called Nag Hammadi.
Which is pretty remote.
Very remote. And
Yeah.
you've got these two local peasants, Bidastan Gori and Umar al-Ikbi, and they're out there digging for fertilizer.
Sabak, they called it, the nitrate-rich soil.
Right, sabak. So it's just this incredibly mundane, repetitive, back-breaking work in the middle of nowhere. And then suddenly, clunk.
The shovel hits something.
The shovel hits something hard, so they brush away the dirt, and they unearth this massive sealed clay jar.
And they must have been terrified at first.
Oh, absolutely. I read they thought there might be a djinn inside, like a spirit, or maybe gold. They're standing there in this blistering heat, and they have absolutely no idea what they have just found.
But it definitely wasn't gold.
No, not gold at all. Inside that ancient vessel are 78 texts, written on these incredibly fragile papyrus scrolls.
Texts that had literally been hiding in the dark for 1,600 years.
Yeah, 16 centuries.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't know that pulling this specific jar out of the dirt is about to completely rewrite our understanding of the origins of the world's largest religion. Welcome, listeners, to another My Mind MashUps deep dive, where we unravel mysteries, spark curiosity, and make sense of complex ideas together.
It truly is. It's one of the most cinematic archaeological discoveries in modern history.
It really belongs in a movie.
It does. And today we're basically opening up that jar. We're unpacking the Nag Hammadi library, which is this collection of ancient Gnostic texts that reveal a radically different Jesus than the one most people are familiar with.
And before we get fully into the sand and the scrolls and all the historical drama, I want to remind you that the core ethos of our deep dives is always about three things: sparking your curiosity, challenging the assumptions we all walk around with, and expanding our shared understanding of the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy content that makes you think.
So we should probably get into it.
Let's get into it. We have these 78 texts. Why did finding a bunch of old scrolls in a jar send such massive shockwaves through the historical and religious communities? Why was it such a big deal?
Well, to understand the shockwave, we have to look at what these texts actually are. And maybe more importantly, what we actually knew before we found them.
Okay, set the stage for us.
So these scrolls were written in Coptic.
Which is what, exactly?
It was basically the everyday language of Egypt at the time. It functioned essentially as a bridge language, using the Greek alphabet to write Egyptian words.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And the physical papyrus itself dates back to the late 3rd or early 4th century CE. But the wild thing is, before 1945, our entire understanding of this early Christian movement, the movement known as Gnosticism, was almost entirely secondhand.
Wait, when you say secondhand, you mean we only knew about them for the people who hated them?
Right. Exactly.
We only had the writings of the Orthodox Christian leaders who were actively hunting down these ideas and, condemning them as heresies.
Precisely. Imagine trying to understand a complex philosophical movement, but your only source material is just a series of angry letters written by their fiercest political and theological rivals.
You're definitely going to get a highly distorted, villainized version of what they actually believed.
Right. It's totally biased.
It's like only knowing about a movie by reading the one-star reviews from people who absolutely despised it.
That is a great way to put it.
You're getting a very skewed picture. But then, Bidastan and Umar hit that jar with their shovel. And suddenly, in 1945, we finally have the director's cut.
We do. We have the actual words, preserved by the culture that cherished them, rather than the people who wanted to burn them.
Which changes everything.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the discovery of this director's cut shatters a massive historical illusion.
What illusion is that?
Well, for centuries, the conventional narrative taught in history books and in churches was that the early Christian church was this single, unified, orthodox body right from the start.
That everyone just agreed on the core theology from day one.
Right. That there was one clear message. But Nag Hammadi proves that is simply not true. It reveals these vibrant, parallel spiritual traditions that were flourishing right alongside the developing mainstream church.
Like competing versions of the same startup.
Exactly. And the core of these Gnostic traditions wasn't about blind obedience to religious law or submitting to a hierarchy. It was about gnosis.
Okay, let's define that for the listener, because gnosis is a word that gets thrown around a lot in these circles.
It does.
It translates to knowledge, right? But we aren't talking about, like, memorizing facts from a textbook, are we?
No, not at all. Gnosis means spiritual knowledge.
Okay.
It is a deep, transformative self-realization. In this specific worldview, humanity has essentially fallen into a world of physical illusion, like a material trap.
Almost like the Matrix.
Very much like the Matrix. And gnosis is the act of discerning the divine spark that is already hidden within yourself and breaking free from those material illusions.
So it's very internal.
Completely. It is not about faith as a passive intellectual belief. It is about active inner discovery. You don't just believe in the divine, you experience your own connection to it directly.
Man, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
So if the Nag Hammadi library is the director's cut, what is the opening scene? Like, what is the text that completely changes the plot of the movie we thought we knew?
That would undoubtedly be the Gospel of Thomas.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's the most famous. And it is fascinating because of its sheer age and its format. Scholars date the original traditions in Thomas back to roughly 80 to 150 CE.
Wait, really? That early?
Yes, that makes it potentially as old or even older than some of the canonical Gospels like John.
Well, okay.
But if you sit down to read it, expecting a story like Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, you're going to be very surprised.
Why is that?
Because there is no narrative.
No narrative at all. So, like, no setup, no traveling from town to town, no miracles, no crucifixion story.
None of that. The Gospel of Thomas is entirely a collection of what scholars call logia.
Okay, let's pause there. What exactly is a logian?
A logian is simply a Greek term for a saying or an utterance.
Oh.
So the Gospel of Thomas is essentially just a list. 114 independent sayings, or logia, attributed directly to Jesus.
So it's just boom, 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 wisdom quotes one after the other.
Exactly. Just a compilation of his teachings.
I know some of those sayings are incredibly intense, though. Can you give me an example of something Jesus says in Thomas that we definitely wouldn't hear in a typical Sunday school class today?
Oh, certainly. There are quite a few. Let's look at Logian 39. In this saying, Jesus states, if your male or female partner does not love you, cut off your nose and ear.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. That is incredibly visceral.
It is.
It sounds completely unhinged and, frankly, violent at first glance. I mean, why would a spiritual text advocate for cutting off your own face?
It is understandably shocking, and this is exactly where understanding the Gnostic worldview becomes crucial.
Right.
This is not a literal command for self-mutilation.
I would hope not.
Right. It is a radical, highly symbolic teaching about overcoming our attachment to the material world and to human desire.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense.
Remember, the Gnostic path is heavily focused on transcending the earthly bonds that tie the soul down to this physical realm. So a saying like that uses extreme, shocking physical imagery to make a point about spiritual detachment.
So it is essentially saying your spiritual liberation is so critically important that any earthly attachment that holds you back, even intense romantic, emotional, or physical desire, needs to be severed if it is keeping you asleep.
That is the perfect way to phrase it, yes. And we see this intense focus on the inner spiritual reality throughout the entire text.
What's another example?
Take Logian 62, for example. Jesus says, the kingdom of God is inside you and outside you.
Inside and outside.
Yes. Think about how radically that reframes the concept of salvation.
Right, because usually it's pitched as a place you go.
Exactly. The kingdom is not some geographical location you travel to. It is not a future promise you get as a reward after you die, assuming you followed all the rules.
Right.
It is an immediate, accessible spiritual presence right here, right now, humming underneath the surface of reality.
And you access it through that gnosis?
Yes.
I think there's another saying, Logian 26, I think, that reinforces that idea. It says, whoever finds the meaning of these words will not taste death.
Yes, that's a very famous one.
Yeah, obviously that cannot mean physical immortality.
Yeah.
Because, well, everyone dies physically.
Right, the body always dies.
So it has to mean spiritual awakening, right? Like, if you wake up to the reality of the divine spark inside you, the physical death of the body just doesn't matter anymore.
That is the core of the Gnostic message right there. Death is just a transition, a shedding of a physical garment you just no longer need.
Wow. If this is resonating, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive.
It really is a powerful way to look at existence.
So the Gospel of Thomas seems very solitary. It's all about looking inward, finding that spark, separating yourself from material desire. But how did these early seekers actually interact with each other in a community?
That's a great question.
Did this focus on the inner kingdom, change, real-world power dynamics among the people following these teachings?
It changed them profoundly, particularly when it came to authority and gender.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. To see how, we have to look at two other incredible texts found in that jar, the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Philip.
Okay, let's talk about Mary first.
So, the Gospel of Mary is a profoundly significant text because it portrays Mary Magdalene not just as a follower, but as a primary apostle.
Which is a huge shift from the traditional narrative.
Massive. In fact, she is presented as a visionary authority who possesses secret, advanced teachings from Jesus that the male disciples simply do not have.
And reading the text, the other disciples do not handle that well at all.
No, they do not.
There's this amazing ancient drama playing out in the pages. Peter is incredibly jealous and dismissive of her. He basically asks, why would the Savior speak to a woman secretly and not openly to us?
He's very threatened by her.
Yeah, his ego is totally bruised. But then Andrew steps in and defends her, validating her spiritual insight. It really pulls back the curtain on the internal conflicts happening in these early groups.
It does. It highlights a very real tension over who gets to speak for the divine. And then you have the Gospel of Philip, which dives deep into secret initiation practices.
What kind of practices?
Well, it introduces this concept of the mystic marriage. This was the idea of the individual soul, which is represented as the bride, uniting with the divine reality, the bridegroom, in a state of perfect spiritual harmony.
Okay, but how did that actually work in practice? Like, were they having literal wedding ceremonies in these communities?
Scholars debate the exact rituals, honestly, but it seems to have been a highly symbolic sacrament.
So, more of a metaphor.
Yeah, perhaps a ritual anointing or a meditative initiation where the practitioner fully realized their divine nature. But Philip also contains one of the most controversial lines in the entire Nag Hammadi library.
I think I know where you're going with this.
It's regarding Mary Magdalene. It is in section 62.
Ah, yes. The famous line where it refers to Jesus and Mary as close friends, or I think in some translations it mentions that he loved her more than the other disciples and used to kiss her often.
That's the one.
Over the centuries, Orthodox critics totally weaponized that specific phrase to imply there was some scandalous earthly romance going on, which they used to discredit the Gnostics entirely.
Yes, that line has been the subject of endless speculation, even inspiring modern pop culture thrillers.
The Da Vinci Code.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have to read it through the lens of Gnostic theology.
I have to push back a little here, though. Are you sure that isn't just modern scholars being a bit prudish?
How do you mean?
Well, if a text says they used to kiss often and were close friends, I mean, why couldn't it just be a literal earthly romance? Why does it have to be a metaphor?
It's a fair question, but you have to remember what we just discussed about Logian 39 and Thomas.
The cutting off the nose part.
Right. The Gnostics viewed the flesh and earthly desires as illusions to be transcended. For advanced spiritual teacher in the Gnostic tradition to be bound by earthly romance would be completely contradictory to their core philosophy.
Ah, I see.
In their symbolic language, a kiss represented the exchange of spiritual breath, the passing of wisdom from one enlightened soul to another. Yeah. And being close friends denoted an incredibly intimate spiritual relationship between two advanced initiates. It meant Mary understood Jesus' teachings on a profound, enlightened level that the male disciples simply hadn't reached.
Okay, that makes perfect sense when you put it in the context of their worldview. It's not about the physical body at all.
Not at all.
I like to think of it this way. In the developing mainstream church, authority was becoming very institutionalized.
Yes, very structured.
It was about your title, your rank, or your gender like Peter, claiming authority simply because he is the designated male leader.
Correct.
But in these Gnostic texts, authority was more like a spiritual VIP pass.
The VIP pass, I like that.
Right. It didn't matter what your gender or social status was. The only thing that got you past the velvet rope was whether you possessed the gnosis.
Exactly.
If you had the knowledge and the spiritual awakening, you had the authority. Which perfectly explains why women, like Mary Magdalene, were often seen as spiritually advanced leaders in these specific communities.
That is an excellent analogy. The VIP pass wasn't handed down by a bishop. It was realized within the self. But of course, as you can imagine, a growing institution is not going to be thrilled about a theology that says anyone can access divine authority directly without needing a church hierarchy as a middleman.
Right. If anyone can have a VIP pass, The people trying to build the official structure must have absolutely hated that.
They really did.
So how did the mainstream institution actually react to this? We have all these secret teachings floating around, empowering individuals. What did the official church do? Let's bring in another heavyweight from the jar to set the stage. The Apocryphon of James.
Yes, the Apocryphon of James, which is also known as the Secret Book of John. It is a wild read.
Just to clarify for everyone, Apocryphon simply means a secret or hidden writing.
Exactly. And this text serves as a direct, complex counter-narrative to the canonical Gospels we know. It is filled with sweeping apocalyptic visions, complex cosmic hierarchies, and angels delivering secret messages from heaven.
It sounds like a sci-fi epic.
It really does read like one sometimes. And again, it reinforces that core theme. Jesus tells James, the kingdom is in your mouth.
In your mouth.
Meaning it is your immediate spoken reality. But teachings like this were increasingly viewed as a severe threat to the unity of the church.
So what was the mechanism? Like, how did they shut it down?
Well, by the year 325 CE, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea.
The famous Council of Nicaea.
Right. Now, it is important to look at this impartially.
Of course.
The mainstream Orthodox leaders were trying to shepherd a young, fragile religion that had just survived centuries of brutal Roman persecution.
Right. They had been hunted themselves.
Exactly. From their perspective, they desperately needed unified doctrine to survive. They needed a single, cohesive message. If you have dozens of different groups claiming they have secret inner knowledge that supersedes the bishops, the religion splinters into 1,000 tiny factions.
It becomes impossible to manage.
Yeah, precisely. So, at Nicaea, they standardized the creed. They defined what was in and what was out. And in that process, Gnostic texts, with their emphasis on secret knowledge and inner divinity, were definitively condemned as heretical.
So they drew a line in the sand. You were either Orthodox or you were out.
That was the turning point.
But even today, sitting here looking at these texts, modern scholars are still throwing rhetorical punches at each other over what this all means. Let's break down the academic battlegrounds.
Oh, the debates are fierce. There are 3 main academic debates still raging today.
What's the first one?
The first is the debate over origins. Are these texts legitimate, parallel Christian traditions that just evolved differently from the very beginning? Or are they, as some argue, heavily influenced by Greek or pagan philosophy that merely adopted Christian vocabulary to sound legitimate?
That's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
And then there's the debate over the words themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, are the 114 sayings in the Gospel of Thomas actual historical quotes from the real Jesus that were preserved through an alternative oral tradition? Or were they invented centuries later by Gnostic writers who just slapped Jesus' name on their own philosophy to give their theology some credibility?
Exactly. It's the debate of authenticity. And the third debate is over how these texts were lost in the first place.
Oh, the conspiracy theories.
Yes, the more conspiratorial views suggest that Orthodox church fathers maliciously hunted down and destroyed these texts to consolidate their own political power, forcing monks to bury them in jars to save them.
Which makes for a great story.
It does. But a more neutral historical view suggests that maybe it was just a natural process of textual survival.
How so?
Well, the Orthodox tradition had a massive organized network and the funding to copy and preserve its texts continuously.
Right, they have the infrastructure.
Exactly. The smaller, more esoteric Gnostic communities naturally faded away, and without people to manually copy them, their fragile papyrus texts just crumbled to dust over the centuries.
Except, of course, for the one sealed in that jar in Nag Hammadi.
Exactly. That one jar survived.
It is a fascinating historical puzzle that we might never fully solve. But before we get to why all of this ancient history actually matters to your life today, I want to quickly remind you to like, comment, and subscribe to hear more My Mind MashUps deep dives.
So we have talked about what these texts are, what they say, and why scholars are still arguing about them.
Right.
But these scrolls sat in the dark for over 1.5 millennia. Why should you, the listener, care about them right now? I mean, why does this matter to someone listening on their commute or while doing the dishes?
Yeah, it's easy to view this as just trivia for history buffs. But to me, the first big takeaway is a massive challenge to authority.
How do you mean?
Well, the Nag Hammadi library proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that spirituality has always had diverse voices.
True.
There was never just one unified path.
Mhm.
It offers a historical precedent for spiritual choice, showing that diversity of thought is ancient, rather than just accepting a coercive institutional uniformity.
That's a great point. What's fascinating here is how incredibly relevant these ancient concepts are to modern psychological struggle.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the world today. We are dealing with an epidemic of anxiety, of feeling profoundly alienated, of feeling disconnected from traditional institutions.
People are definitely searching for meaning outside the usual structures.
Right. And the Gnostic message, the practice of letting go of material illusions, of trusting your direct inner experience, the mandate to know thyself, these are practically the foundational pillars of modern therapeutic practices.
It's so true.
It is about untangling yourself from the external noise.
It really is ancient wisdom for the modern seeker. It is no wonder that everyone from New Age thinkers to feminist theologians to people just trying to find some peace and quiet in their own heads are finding inspiration in these specific texts.
It resonates on so many levels.
Because the core message is incredibly empowering.
Uh.
You don't have to wait for an external savior to come fix everything for you. You don't have to wait for a future reward after you die. According to the text those two peasants pulled out of the dirt in 1945, the tools for your own transformation, the kingdom itself, are already inside you.
It shifts the locus of control entirely from the external world to the internal world. It demands that you take responsibility for your own spiritual or psychological awakening.
It's beautiful, really. So, what does this all mean for us as we wrap up? We started in the blistering heat of the Egyptian desert, a completely accidental discovery of a single jar that fundamentally shifted our understanding of Western religious history.
Which leaves us with a rather profound, lingering thought.
Let's hear it.
If two men, just going about their daily chores, looking for fertilizer in the dirt, could accidentally unearth a secret that had been buried for 16 centuries, what other lost truths are still out there? What other ancient paradigms, what other director's cuts of history are still buried right beneath our feet, just waiting for the strike of a shovel to shatter our assumptions all over again?
Man, it really makes you realize that our map of history is totally unfinished. Find My Mind mashups everywhere you listen. Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Cast, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could shape our next deep dive.